This is Radar for On the Radar Entertainment Blog coming to another edition of MLB Observations for the 2021 Hotstove Offseason Edition, week number 3. So former Sox pitcher, Cubs pitcher, a bunch of teams, Jose Quintana, who ended the season last year as a San Francisco Giant relief pitcher, has signed a one-year deal with the Pirates. That's a good deal for him because he gets guaranteed one-year deal to build up his value back as a starter and to prove he's healthy. He's the type of guy who would fit perfectly in teams like the White Sox and the Red Sox and even the Yankees and even the Rays, who are always good at pitching, and let's say the Astros and the A's. These teams that are playoff caliber teams, but they need some pitching depth in the 4 through 5 spot. And that is something that he would be good at, but again, like the Pirates will do, like a lot of teams who know they're not going to be good, is they sign a veteran guy on a low budget deal in their mind, gives the guy value, and then they could trade him for prospects. And that's what's probably going to happen, and he'll probably be traded to one of the teams that could have signed him. The Brewers lost Manny Pina, their backup catcher, to the Braves, so they go sign Pedro Severino, the Orioles catcher, to be their backup. Finally, I could say that Pedro Severino screwed the careers of Chance Sisco and Austin Wynns. When they both started, they were in their 20s. Wynns is now getting into his 30s, so he's a career backup at this point. But both of them were younger catchers that should have started every single day to see who you have. Now Sisco ended the year with the Mets. Austin Wynns signed a minor deal with another team the other day. So Severino was a backup in Washington. He never once was so great that I thought he should be getting at bats every day as a starter or batting in the middle of the lineup, which is what they did a lot the last couple of years. He's now where he's supposed to be, backing up a catcher in Omar Narvaez, who's a much better offensive catcher than he is, and he could just be a defensive catcher. Third baseman / first baseman DH, and sometimes occasional pitcher, Matt Davidson, has signed a minor deal with the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks are set at first base. They played a bunch of nobodies at third base after they traded Escobar, so maybe he has a clear path to get some at bats at third base, but he's really at best if he makes the Major League roster as a pinch hitter off the bench, but also he'll come and pitch because he can do that. He's shown he can do that. And then the Angels signed Aaron Loup. They just signed Noah Syndergaard the past week. They just signed Aaron Loup, the veteran left-handed relief pitcher, to a 2-year deal. I don't know what's going to do for that bullpen, especially if Iglesias, their closer, is not going to come back to them. It's good to have a great 6th or 7th inning guy or lefty specialist, but what do you do without a closer? Rangers acquired Billy McKinney and Zach Reeks. They both were recently designated for assignment by the Dodgers. It just gives them outfield depth. The Brewers acquired Jay Jackson. That gives them bullpen depth. Cubs acquired Harold Ramirez. Now, the Cubs have Ian Happ, and they're paying Jason Hayward forever. So they're the only 2 guaranteed outfield spots on their team. So Harold Ramirez has a good chance to be a 4th or 5th outfielder because that's what he did in Cleveland and Miami. Cleveland signed Sandy Leon to a minor league deal. That's where he played a long time. It's good to have him as organizational depth because they really don't have any clear catching. Cleveland then traded reliever J.C. Mejia to the Brewers because they're getting rid of guys on roster spots. Brewers get depth there. Yankees trade Tyler Wade, the utility player, to the Angels. And wow, the Angels now have a utility player to go with that middle relief pitcher. They don't really have an everyday second baseman shortstop because they're not sure whether they're playing Fletcher, and Rendon never stays healthy. So Tyler Wade, who's even played the outfield, will get an opportunity to get at bats in Anaheim. Giants have re-signed both Alex Wood to 2 years and Anthony DeSclafani to a 3-year deal, both of those. That was their success last year. Johnny Cueto, DeSclafani, and Alex Wood. Those were the keys to some of their success last year in that rotation. And that Logan Webb guy came out of nowhere. They even tried Scott Kazmir and Aaron Sanchez. But yeah, basically, DeSclafani and Wood pitched great. So did Kevin Gausman. So you want to keep those guys intact. And yeah, they probably got more money elsewhere, but just stay where you've had your success, and maybe it'll continue. Wander Franco signed this huge contract extension for a 12-year at $223 million. If you remember, the Astros signed Jonathan Singleton to like a 10-year deal. The dude just stopped being the good player he was for the few years he was in the major leagues. They had to take him off the 4-man roster so it didn't go against the salary cap, and he was just stuck in AAA. The Red Sox had the long-term deal with Renucci Castillo, who I thought they probably should have played, but that's another story. And then the Phillies give that Scott Kingery guy the huge deal, and it just didn't work out. He has not been good the last couple of years. Evan Weiss got that long-term deal with Seattle, and he got hurt after winning Gold Glove last year. Like, I know Major League Baseball is no longer the the place to give guys money for what they used to do, which is what they've been doing for like 100 years. Basically, if a guy was good for 8 years and becomes a free agent, you give him a 5 to 8 year deal, like the Cubs gave Soriano, and it's what you're going to do. Eventually, like, you get paid because you were good at one point. How can you be good? Steroids played into that, prolong people's careers into their 40s and not, into the 30s. Players and teams had to be smart with players and say, we'll give you long-term extensions to buy out your arbitration and some free agency years because you have all this great young potential, and it'll be cheaper for us in the long run. And that's what they've been doing. They've been going cheaper and younger and not signing veterans. A lot of veterans out to sign minor league deals. But yeah, that's what the Rays are doing. Even though he didn't play a full 162-game season, let's give him this long-term deal. I know he's the number one prospect the last 2 years, but that's a lot. White Sox signed Kendall Graven to a 3-year deal after last year signing Liam Hendricks to a multi-year deal. Okay, White Sox need to find a taker for Cade Kimbrel. Maybe the Phillies, maybe do a 3-way trade where they trade Kimbrel to the Phillies or another team that needs a closer, and then that team gives us a second baseman, a starting pitcher, or a prospect, and then the Phillies give them something. Because if I were the White Sox, I would take Didi Gregorius or Gene Segura, because Gregorius is not a great defensive shortstop, and Segura's been playing second base, to play second base, because Phillies are not giving us Noel, and they're not giving us Wheeler, and maybe they'll give us Zach Eflin. I don't know. That's their number 3 guy. They've already given up on Velasquez, and they've already given up on a few other guys, so it's like, I don't know. But that's where the White Sox now have themselves a guy that could pitch the 6th or 7th inning and lock it down with Kopech going to the rotation, maybe Crochet going to the rotation, because that's what the Sox needed, a lockdown guy in the 7th or 8th inning, because Kimbrel wasn't doing that. Kendall Graven got lucky that this year he was mostly healthy, pitched incredible for Seattle, got traded to Houston at the deadline, and was a reliever for last year, because he was an average starting pitcher in Oakland and San Francisco and other places, and then the Cubs signed him when he was out for the year with Tommy John rehabbing, and Seattle signed him, and they just realized he was a reliever. Hopefully this will work out. The Dodgers signed Jason Martin and Bo Burrows to a minor league deal. Jason Martin's been in the minor leagues a bit. Bo Burrows, on the other hand, not as much of major league experience as you would think. But Burrows is, only 25. But, he still has a chance to, this season, as the pitcher has a chance to still be helpful for them on a minor league deal. Signed Ryan Castellani to a minor league deal. This is organizational depth. Kyle Nelson's gone to Arizona off waivers. Scott Moss has gone to the Phillies. Astadulo, the catcher utility player, is officially free agent. And the Cardinals signed Steven Matz to a 4-year deal. Using John Lester, Wade LeBlanc, and Jay Happ last year, because their 3 best pitchers, Martinez, Flaherty, and Mikolas, were injured. So if Flaherty and Mikolas are healthy, and even get the likes of Hudson and Jordan Hicks could start, if they're healthy, and you potentially have Steven Matz, who, he's had an injury concern, but you're not asking to be your ace, you're asking to be your 3rd or 4th starter, maybe even your 5th starter. It's a good deal. A lot of teams wanted Steven Matz, including the Mets wanted to bring him back. And Antonio Santos signed a minor deal with the Mets. Colonial Perez signed a minor deal with the O's. The Mets signed minor league outfielder Nick Plummer to a major league deal. I don't understand that. The dude's never played in the major leagues. Why do you have to give him guaranteed money? Just sign a minor deal. That's my issue there. Angels cut Keenan Wong and relief pitcher Hector Yan. Keenan Wong did everything the Angels asked him to. He played shortstop, third base, even though he's a second baseman, and he played the outfield. So somebody will sign him because he's got utility experience. Fortunately for the Rays, they're at their outcome surgery for Brandon McKay, that 2-way prospect of theirs. So again, they need help in the pitching department there. Pirates like what they got at Yoshi Sugo at the end of the year, but again, I'm going to say this. If you like Key Brian Hayes, and you like Colin Moran, and Ryan Reynolds is not a center fielder, and you really don't have set outfielders, Yoshi Sugo playing right field or left field is kind of cringy because he's more of a first baseman. But he's a great pinch hitter, utility guy for the National League. Luis Alexander Basabe is back with the White Sox, a minor league deal. The Sox took him off the roster, and he went through a couple of teams. If he's healthy, he'd be the great 4th or 5th outfielder, pinch runner, and defensive replacement. Fillmore's got a minor league deal with the Padres, organizational depth. Diamondbacks signed Juan Gratterall to a minor league deal. Catching, always good to have depth there, especially the Diamondbacks. Carson Kelly missed time last year. Adrian Sanchez re-signed a minor league deal with the Nationals, and Victor Arano to a minor league deal again. Relief pitching and Sanchez utility player. Cubs, one of Cubs prospects, Miguel Amaya, Tommy John, so that's not good for them. Eduardo Escobar today just came in, signed a 2-year deal with the Mets. So J.D. Davis doesn't stay healthy. Tried him in left field, tried him in third base, not great defensively. Jeff McNeil seemed like he struggled when he played some outfield or third base when he's second baseman. So with Escobar, the Mets could figure out what's the best spot for him. If it is going to be second base, third base, where's McNeil, where's Davis play? Do one of them get traded? Because Michael Conforto left in free agency, do you maybe put McNeil in the outfield every day to accommodate everybody? That would be interesting. And the Red Sox signed Michael Wacha. So they said, you know what? Perez can never stay healthy. Let's not use him. Let's take Garrett Richards out of the rotation. He's not healthy. Let's, not give Eduardo Rodriguez any money because the Tigers signed him for a lot of money. And Chris Sale's coming back from surgery. Nathan Eovaldi's not the most healthiest. So Wacha, with the Mets in Tampa Bay the last couple of years, he has not been healthy, and they use him as a relief pitcher. So I don't know what the Red Sox are doing there, because that's not the type of move that you need to do when you lose Rod Rodriguez, and you're not going to have Richards or Perez or anything like that. So, Brian O'Grady signed in Japan. That's the way he is when you're a quad A first baseman who they have you play pretty much every single position, infield and outfield. That's where you go to star and make some money. Giants stupidly cut Alex Dickerson. Dickerson has been so good for them. He has solidified the outfield, no matter if he's playing center field, right field, or left field. Pinch hitting, defensive replacement, pinch running. He's one of the reasons why the Giants were good this year. They had these, they plugged in these offshoot players that nobody wanted anymore, like Yastrzemski and whatnot. And it was just like Flores and Tommy La Stella, and they had Donovan Solano. These guys are just cast off from other teams, Darren Ruff, and they just work perfectly. Somebody's going to pick him up, because when he came up with San Diego, he's this good defensive, got speed, multiple tools, he can play center field. Somebody's definitely going to pick him up, because there are a lot of teams that need outfield help. Even if it's on a minor league deal, then they're going to realize, well, this guy was really, really good. Now, Wade Davis just announced his retirement. And one thing to say about him, for a dude who was supposed to be this top starting pitching prospect with the Rays, and then gets traded to the Royals in that trade, where, along with James Shields, he went for prospect Will Myers, Jake Odorizzi, who had some success in Kansas City before trading to Tampa Bay. The success in Kansas City, but going to Tampa Bay. He's been a pretty good veteran pitcher. Mike Montgomery's has been a useful starter and reliever and all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, they always thought, hey, let's put him back in the rotation. So they tried to put him back in the rotation after he spent time in the bullpen, and they just realized, you know what? Maybe he's best in the bullpen. And when he was in this bullpen, and they had Kelvin Herrera and him setting up Greg Holland, and they even had Ryan Maston for a bit, and how you're doing it when Greg Holland left and he was the closer. He had some great years as setup man and closer, and he was a 3-time All-Star in that 15, 16, 17 season. And in that 15 season, when he made the All-Star team, he won a World Series. Great year. They went to 2 World Series. Then he signed this humongo contract with the Cubs, and not really. He was with the Rockies for 3 years. It wasn't that great. He was on the Cubs team when they traded him to Chicago for Jorge Soler, and he was the only Cubs to make the All-Star team, so he was good then. But that stretch, and then he went to the Rockies. Wasn't that great. Had a 4 ERA, couldn't stay healthy, and they just said, oh, never mind. Then he signed a minor league deal this year to be with the Royals, and he spent some time with them this year. He wasn't that great, but at least he was able to come full circle in a way that he can go back to the team he had the most success with. And one thing to know about the Rockies, he did lead the league in save one. So he finished with 929 strikeouts as mostly a relief pitcher, 141 saves, and a just below 4 ERA, and he had a winning record of 63 and 55. I know he's 36 years old, and I think he, as a reliever, could have pitched till he was 40, but health has been an issue, so not a bad career. Another thing I want to touch on, because it's not something I was in my podcast and I was able to get to because of time constraints, but I wanted to talk about the Silver Sluggers. And I was thinking to myself, like, some of these were not, the ones that I agreed with. So they went with Vladimir Guerrero, first base. That was fine. I agree with that. And then they went with, I thought Joey Votto should have won it this year. They went with Freddie Freeman, which is totally fine. They went Simeon and Ozzie Albies. I went Ozzie Albies, and I also went Simeon, so we're good on that. Shortstop, they went Bogart and Fernando Tatis Jr. I went Silver Sluggers Bo Bichette. Bogarts was my second choice. I don't want to seem biased as I like the Red Sox. And they went Fernando Tatis, and I went Fernando Tatis. Then at third base, they went Devers and Austin Riley. And guess what? I had Austin Riley, and I had Rafael Devers. So that was the same there. Catcher, I went Sal Perez. They went Sal Perez and Buster Posey. I went Sal Perez, and I went actually with Will Smith of the Dodgers. But hey, Buster Posey was second on my list for me. And in the outfield, they went Teoscar Hernandez, Aaron Judge, and Cedric Mullins. Now, the thing that I have the issue with is that Teoscar Hernandez, as good offensive year he had, he played all three outfield spots, and I thought Mitch Haniger had a better year in right field. Aaron Judge is a right fielder. He didn't even make my top 3 list that had Hunter Renfroe in it. Cedric Mullins, though, was definitely my center fielder, number 1. I had said in left field, exclusively left fielders, Gurriel and Andrew Benintendi and Michael Brantley, but they didn't go exclusively right field or left field. They just went outfield. Because if you look in the National League, they went Nicky Castellanos, who exclusively played right field, Bryce Harper, who exclusively played right field, and they went Juan Soto, who played a lot of right field this year because they had Schwarber for half a season and never moved him back. So for me, we do have 3 guys who are right fielders. I didn't even go with them. I went Harper as my obviously winner in right field. Runner-up was Castellanos and Avi Garcia. Center field, I went with actual center fielders, Trent Grisham, Harrison Bader, and Odubel Herrera. And I went exclusively left fielders where I thought Tyler O'Neill, A.J. Pollock, and Raimel Tapia were the 3 best offensive players there. That's where I'm like, what are you even doing? And DH, obviously, went to Ohtani, and that's what I had. Like, there was no Yordan Alvarez had a good year, blah, blah, blah. And then pitcher-wise, in the National League, for pitching-wise, I just thought, you know what? German Marquez has done a pretty good job in his career, so has DeGrom, but also Max Fried. And then they came out with a Hall of Fame ballot. That's one thing, as I mentioned, that the thing that I want to say is that every year I always get a huge, things like that. So I'm looking at this like, there are guys that I've talked about on previous On the Radar podcasts, wherever you get it, Google Up or Spotify, where I've already argued why they should be in the Hall of Fame, and there are guys that are not, that are got in the Hall of Fame too quickly and things like that. So that is where I'm just like, yeah. And that's where it's like, okay, cool. Certain guys who are not in the Hall of Fame should already be in. And I will continue to say which guys should get in. Kurt Schilling, who's on his last year of eligibility, needs to actually get into the Hall of Fame, man. I know he said he doesn't care anymore, and he doesn't want to be on the ballot, but he needs to get in there. That's where it is there. And then guys like Jeff Kent, Billy Wagner, and Todd Helton, and Omar Vizquel, and Andrew Jones, they're Hall of Famers, and people are just, overlooking them. Obviously, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Alex Rodriguez, David Ortiz, no matter if their first year or their last year, cheated. We all know they cheated. Let's not put them in. The only guys on the first year ballot that I think that should stay will probably be Prince Fielder, because he was an MVP, hit 50 home runs. He had a pretty good career, and his career was ruined by neck injuries, all those other injuries. And Joe Nathan is definitely a Hall of Fame caliber closer. The problem is, if you don't have Billy Wagner, and it took a while for other relief pitchers to get in, like Trevor Hoffman and Lee Smith, and then John Franco's not even in the Hall of Fame, that's going to take a while. Carl Crawford, Ryan Howard, Tim Lincecum, Justin Morneau, Jonathan Papelbon, Jake Peavy, AJ Brzezinski, Jimmy Rollins, and Mark Teixeira. They're not Hall of Famers, but I do think that Ryan Howard, like Prince Fielder with injuries, he'll get some votes. Tim Lincecum was good for a stretch. Morneau was good for a stretch. Papelbon, if he was still pitching into his mid to late 30s and he had all these saves, he just fell off the planet at some point in his early 30s, and yeah, so his number stalled there. And then Jake Peavy was good for a certain amount of time, was injured. AJ was probably one of the best offensive catchers of his generation, but not a Hall of Famer, especially when you're playing an era with Yadi Molina and Joe Mauer and Buster Posey, so it kind of lessens it. And Jimmy Rollins was pretty good for a guy in his position, but health. And then Mark Teixeira, again, was on his way to being a Hall of Famer, but because of health, that was the thing. So, thanks for listening to another edition of MLB observations for the 2021 offseason, the Hotstove edition, week 3. For On the Radar Tape Blog, I'm Radar. See you guys next time.